Hello and welcome back to a very special Halloween edition of Stories, where I'm talking with a paranormal investigator about all the things that go bump and boo in the night. So sit back, relax, and grab your favorite beverage, and I'll see you on the other side. See you there. Hello and welcome back to another special of Inside the Asperger Studios. Today I'm joined with Heidi Stephens. Welcome to the show, Heidi.
Hi, Reed. It is wonderful to be here today. Thank you for having me.
Not a problem. So why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Well, let's see here. I am an intuitive medium and a paranormal investigator, a shamanic minister, all sorts of fun stuff that started. My journey started a long time ago when I was at about 3 years old, as the earliest I can remember, with all of the stuff that's going on in my life. And it started with um, actually remote viewing. And that was a very interesting thing to start with at 3 years old. I moved through life being able to see and sense spirits and communicate with them, not always willingly. But over my lifetime, I've turned what was something that was very scary into something that is what I do for a living now. And I'm grateful to be able to help other people who have either had similar journeys to myself or are in a place where they're just asking a bunch of questions, whether they believe this or not. I found that I have a knack for being able to help people in a lot of situations. So I'm really grateful for that. So that's how I am here today.
So you wear a lot of hats. I mean, you're a Reiki master, you're a shamanic minister, a paranormal researcher. What kind of pulled you into all of this in the first place? I mean, these are all different aspects of everything you do, but what was that one in definite thing that said, this is the road I want to go?
I don't know that I could say that there was one turning point to be on a spiritual journey. It's been a part of my life, my whole life. And I do wear a lot of hats, but I categorize them in two different categories. I guess they're two sides of the same coin,
Mhm.
where one falls into more of the spiritual aspect, where that's, doing the energy work and shamanic ministry and, the healing work, intuitive work. And then on the other side of the coin is really the paranormal spectrum. And it does, they're different, very different, even though they both deal with energy and spirit. So I can't say that there was one defining moment in my life because it's been with me my whole life, but
Mm.
there was a couple of points, I guess, that really had me start to think differently about this,
Mm.
about everything, because I was very scared of it growing up. So I had some interesting situations that came up that happened that made me think, I maybe need to look at this differently.
Mhm.
Instead of being afraid of it, I should look at why it's happening. And if I can figure that out, then maybe I'll find a reason for this and a purpose. And so that was, I would say it wasn't a point, it was a time frame. It was really in my 20s that unfolded. So I've really been working with this and embracing it for, the last 25 years.
No, I mean, let's start off with something simple. Do you think that spirits are attracted to certain people? Do you feel that certain people attract them, or is it just general? You'll walk into a place and you'll have an experience, or do you think it's more that that person has some kind of energy that attracts a spirit?
So, to answer the question, I would say yes to all of that. It could be anything that some people, yes, have what would be considered a brighter intuitive light that might be attractive to spirits, that might attract them. But there could be a situation or a turning point for someone that then changes their path and that they have some kind of a spiritual experience or their life shifts going forward, that now they start to have these interactions. It's a little bit different, I think, for everybody. There's some similarities, of course, with people, but it just is. It's kind of like a fingerprint. Everybody's going to have their own unique path when it comes to spirit, whether it's a little bit of interaction, no interaction, or quite a bit of interaction. It's just going to be a little different for everybody.
Now, let's start off with a big question. Do you remember your first time you experienced something truly unexplained?
So I will go back to when I was 3 again. I mean, I remember so many things from when I was that age, which I think is not typical. But I remember being able to, I mean, I guess I didn't know this was odd at the time, but I could go into people's houses without being able to, without having to go into the houses. So I would talk to my mom and tell her, you know, what was inside these houses, and she's like, "Why are you going into these strangers' houses?" And I say, "You don't have to, you know." And I mean, I'm sure I explained this in my 3-year-old way, but I remember going into these homes that I had never been in, and I know now, and I learned as I got older that it was remote viewing,
Mm,
and I clearly remember that when I was 3 years old, that was my first
mhm.
kind of dip into this is different than other people do it. I was confused that this doesn't happen to everybody. You just know what it's like on the inside of everybody's houses. So that was probably the first thing. It wasn't scary because I didn't think it was weird. I just thought that's how it is. Um, but that's probably the earliest recollection that I have.
Now, I want to ask an interesting question, and I want your honest answer on this. Do you feel that when a child has a imaginary friend, do you think it's imaginary or do you think it's actually them because children are more open, they're actually talking to a spirit and they see it as an imaginary friend? What is your opinion on that?
I think that it's possible for children to be talking to spirit. I don't think it's every time. Kids are very intuitive. Humans are very intuitive. Every human is intuitive to some degree. So children are much more intuitive because they don't have the filters that have been established as we get older, and we hear so many times that's not real or it's just your imagination. And our brain kind of helps us out and filters out those interactions as we get older. But I do believe that kids are talking to spirit. I don't think it's every time because kids are also very imaginative. And so sometimes it is an imaginary friend that isn't a spirit, but you know, you can sort it out, I guess, depending on the child and what's happening to determine if it's an actual spirit or something that they're just creating.
All right, now let's dive a little bit into the paranormal experiences and the Minnesota Paranormal Research Society. Do you have one case that like gives you to the chills to this day?
Gee, I'm gonna have to sort through the bag of cases. There's quite a few that have been unnerving. A couple of them that really were um, one specifically that was left unfinished that was very dangerous. And um, I still think about this. And my husband and I, we were both at this location, and we both talk about it to this day because it was still unbelievable. The state that the homeowner wanted us to leave the property in, to me, was unacceptable, but it's also not my choice. It was extremely dangerous. I wasn't sure how we were going to manage it. I don't know that anybody could manage it because of the situation, but we were willing to try. And the homeowner said, no, I want to leave it like it is. Even though this was an extremely dangerous and evil entity, they
Mm,
would rather live with that and what they do know versus trying to fix it and what could happen from fixing it. So,
mhm.
and that was, I don't know how long ago that was. That was probably 2016 or 17 that happened. And it's still very clear in our minds.
Now, here's a question. I know I've talked with a couple of people on this, and everyone's got their different views. What is your view on the TV paranormal investigators, like shows like Ghost Hunters or Taps or any of them? Do you feel they're traumatizing it too much to make it feel TV wise? Do you think they're faking a lot of it, or do you think a lot of it's real?
Well, I think there's some really good shows out there. I mean, I was watching the original Ghost Hunters, the Taps crew with everybody else back in the mid 2000s, right?
Hmm.
That's what probably got me hooked, like a lot of people. They're a good investigative team. I would say out of all the original shows, that was one of the better shows because it really was real investigating for average investigations. The standard investigations that most beginning teams go to. There's still some really good shows out there, and I know there's a ton of shows on YouTube and other streaming platforms that I haven't even seen. How can you watch all of them? I don't know. But what I have to kind of watch out for is the show that consistently has something demonic, because that's just not real. So I wonder, and I don't know because I'm not involved in the show, but I have to wonder if it's something that's sensationalized to get ratings.
Yeah.
Because for how long I've been doing this, and I've worked with thousands of people between my work and the paranormal, I've worked with thousands of people, and to have demonic situations on a regular basis, it just doesn't happen. So it can happen and it's possible, but every single show I have to be curious as to how that's possible.
All right. Now, what is the process like when someone reaches out to you for a paranormal activity? How do they, how do you approach it?
Typically we get contacted through our website, and we'll get an email that says, hey, this is what's going on. And we might get 4 or 5 a month, which is too many for one team to do. You can't do that many cases a month. It's overwhelming because there's a lot of work that goes into it. So we really have to be mindful of what kind of cases we take. We try and refer other cases. If we can't take it on because we're too busy, we refer them to other teams. Um, but I do want to get a good amount of information from someone who is saying, hey, we've got something going on. So there's a little bit of back and forth in the beginning, which it's kind of a slow process. And sometimes when people get a hold of us, they're like, we need help now. So I'm interested in folks that when they're responding, they're quick to respond, because that really means, hey, there's something going on and we're serious. If someone's like, oh, I don't want to email all the stuff, can you just call me? I want to try and stay away from that a little bit. I want to make sure, are you going to do some work with us to help you? And ideally, we want to get it taken care of as soon as possible, because usually people are contacting us because they're scared. So we want to get this situation resolved. We want to pull together a team quickly and get to the location as fast as we can so that we can see, what's going on and find the resolution that makes sense for everybody involved. So it is a lengthy process. And I think sometimes the TV shows are misleading in that way, that it's just, nice and tidy 45-minute segment, that there's the whole case. And a whole case in real life could go weeks or even a month or longer, I guess, depending on the situation.
Now, I've talked with another psychic, and how do you handle spirits reaching out to you? I know, because I know it can get hectic, especially like if you wind up in a hospital, you're going to have tons of spirits. How do you sort them out, saying, I can't help all of you one at a time? Or do you kind of like block them off and say, listen, I'm trying to heal myself here. Please leave me alone.
Yeah, it's a tricky process, because in the beginning, when I was becoming open to this idea, I mean, I've been seeing and hearing them all of my life, but I got to the point where I was actually communicating back and forth with them, and it was super overwhelming. And I couldn't handle it. But I thought, if I don't do it, they're not going to get the help they need. Or what if my sensitivities go away because I'm not using them? I had all of these thoughts and fears and worries, and it was not healthy for me, because they don't go away. There's an endless supply. And what I realized is that every spirit does have the means to get help
Mhm.
if they want it. They have the means. They don't have to go to necessarily humans to get help. So my spirit guides, that when I was working with them, they were telling me, like, you can just have them go through us. Don't talk to every spirit that's willy-nilly running around trying to get your attention, because you don't know where they're coming from. You might not understand that it's not what it seems. So just have them go through us. We'll make sure you get the ones that you're supposed to work with. We'll make sure that your sensitivities don't go away. And we're going to help you stay safe. And that way you can focus on also being a human and taking care of yourself and living your human life and not being overrun by, tens or hundreds of spirits every day that are possibly, looking for attention.
Now, are there any moments where you were just like, nope, this is too much for me? You're just overwhelming me?
Every day of my life when I was young, yeah, yes, I did not want it. I hated it. I was scared. I was terrified. So pretty much every day of my youth, yes.
All right. Now let's dive in a little bit into your spiritual work and your shamanic practice. How do your shamanic and spiritual practices tie into your paranormal work? Are they different sides of the same coin?
Yeah, I would say that they're different sides of the same coin. I don't usually bring my intuitive self, I guess, into the paranormal. I really, because when I'm working with a team, I mean, I do, I'll back up. If it's a hard, serious, dangerous case, of course, I will open myself up to be intuitive. It's also dangerous to do that. So you have to be really careful, which is why I don't typically open up my sensitivities when I'm in a paranormal case because I don't want to get hurt. And I'm usually managing a team. I don't want them to get hurt. So I want to make sure that we're making whoever's present go through the equipment and communicate with us that way, because that's part of the point of a paranormal investigation is trying to prove it, using the equipment to prove that there's something here. So I force spirit to go through that instead of me. I mean, they don't have to. I guess I'm not forcing them to do anything, but they can't go through me. So when I'm working with someone on more of the spiritual side, if we're doing a healing journey together, or I'm consulting someone on their soul purpose, their path, whatever it is that we're working on, then I'm definitely open and communicating with my guides, with their guides. I'm using all the tools that I have to help them and get them the answers that they need. So I'm much more open when it comes to working with humans. And when I'm working directly with spirits or paranormal, I want to keep that closed as much as possible.
Right. Now, you say you work with lost and unwelcome spirits. How do you define one over the other? How do you figure out who is who?
Well, that takes a little bit of, I guess it takes experience. And over the years, I've seen that there is a difference. There are spirits that aren't aware of what's going on. They're, lost, like you said, or they're trying to figure out what happened. They're looking for guidance. And yes, they do have their guides with them. Everybody has spirit guides, and every lost or confused spirit has their spirit guides, but sometimes they just don't know to focus on them because they're still so connected with the human experience. So they're looking at humans for help. And so I'm happy to help them because they shouldn't be here, and they're probably not happy, or they just have a message to get across and they want to go on from here. So I want to help them as much as possible. Unwanted or unwelcome entities are different. They're causing trouble. They're, focusing on some kind of trauma for their enjoyment or to fuel them. They're not supposed to be here and usually aren't human. I mean, some human spirits are troublemakers as well, but it's the ones that haven't been human that we have to be very careful. So, I mean, again, human spirits could be unwelcome as well if they're causing trouble, but it's, just finding the difference, like who is it that we're working with? What's their agenda? And then that leads us on a path of what needs to be done.
Now, here's some kind of more personal question on my end. Do you feel that spirits choose to hang around or go on because they want to watch their family live their life and make sure they're okay? Or do you feel that they're drawn one way or another?
I guess it depends on the situation. Each, transition is going to be different. Someone moves on, and they know they were going to pass. Maybe they were sick or they're just old or whatever, and they're ready to go. They're ready to transition, and they do relatively quickly, which is ideal. That's, not someone that, I mean, just when they're ready to go, that they transition. Some do come back and want to check out their loved ones, but once someone has transitioned, it's not often that they just stay and hang out because they also know that they have things to do. It's usually the spirits that haven't fully transitioned that keep coming around and keep tabs on their loved ones, like really close tabs.
Mhm.
So once a spirit has transitioned, there's a lot of healing and understanding that they have, and which is perfect. That's what we want. But some like to hang around. And of course, any spirit that wants to come back and check in on a loved one or help them with something, I mean, that's certainly their choice. But if someone's going to hang around a long time consistently, there's something unique with that situation. And again, maybe their loved one that's still human needs a lot of help, or they need that comfort. They just aren't ready to let go of their loved one. I mean, there's so many answers to that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, I asked this because my father had passed in 2017.
Mm.
And at times I feel he's still with us because certain things would happen, lights would flicker. There was an instance of the TV turning on in the middle of the night and blaring loud, and that was something my dad would do. The TV would be loud, and my mom would be like, turn the TV off, it's too loud. Or just like little things, like
Mm-hmm.
things opening. I mean, the best experience I can remember is my mother and I were driving in our car, and we had the volume on the radio low, and all of a sudden a commercial for change your air conditioner filters came on, and the volume went up high.
Oh,
It's and that's something my dad always had talked about to me is make sure you change the air filters on our furnace.
that's cool. So in something a case like that, I mean, that sounds like it would be your dad. I mean, it feel like you're telling me and it feels like it's your dad. I'm feeling that energy. And that's normal kind of stuff. To say to someone, "Hey, I'm still around. I'm okay." Like you as soon as something like that happens and you think that's my dad, then it probably is.
Mhm.
And those kind of signals and signs are comforting, to say, "Oh my gosh, there really is an afterlife. They can communicate with us and it helps us have some kind of comfort." And that can be normal for some people, is to have that little check in here and there. Constant someone with you all the time, not normal. And most of the time there's something else going on if that's what's happening.
I mean, the most vivid experience I remember was right after he had passed. I had a dream. My father was coming down the stairs to check on me, and I remember going to turn to him to say, I'll be ready in a minute, and then this thought popped in my head, he's gone.
Mm.
And it was just like kind of a reminder, like, hey, I'm okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Dreams are a great way for our loved ones to come through because we're a little bit more open when we're sleeping. So when you have one of those dreams that is so vivid, it
Yeah.
seems real, then it probably is.
Now, you work with Reiki energy and
Mhm.
breath work. Have you ever felt spirit energy coming through during a session?
Every time. Absolutely every time. I feel it. I feel it so strongly when I'm channeling Reiki
Hmm.
to my client or recipient. I feel that unconditionally loving energy so strong. I
Hmm.
get emotional if I try and talk about it, because I hope that everybody can feel a fraction of what's coming through. The amount of love that people can receive from divine source is miraculous. So I hope every day that people can feel just a fraction of that, like I feel when it's traveling through me into a recipient. It's magical. I feel it absolutely every time.
Now, you mentioned that lines between planes and dimensions are becoming more intertwined. What does that look What does that look like or feel like in the day-to-day life?
I believe that more and more people are becoming sensitive. I believe that our environment, our um, plane of existence is shifting. I feel as a species we're moving through this phase of leveling up, and but it's a messy process. So as we're shifting and changing and evolving as species do, um, people are becoming more sensitive to spirit, and people being born in with a different kind of soul, a more connected soul, are becoming more sensitive to spirit and seeing things that we haven't seen before. So more and more people are coming to me and to other people that do similar work and saying, I'm having experiences that I can't understand and that aren't part of our culture that we've been in for as long as this country has been around anyway. So it's really interesting how what I've seen is these lines are blurring between dimensions, and people are becoming sensitive to that. They're having experiences where they didn't have experiences before, and if they had experiences before, it's becoming so clear that they can't deny it, and they need to reach out and talk to someone about what's going on.
Now, do you believe that those who are neurodivergent are more open to the spiritual energy and are more attracted to the spirits than those who are neurotypical, who are just like you?
I think it's definitely a possibility. Of course, I'm not a scientist or haven't done any studies, but I can see where, without maybe some standard filters, that, people are just more open to sensitivities and to spirit. Um, I think that there's definitely that possibility, um, which I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I can't answer that for sure because I guess I haven't ever studied it, but I would expect that that would be the case.
Now let's dive in a little to your podcast and everything else. You co-host a gathering and run My Spirit Experience podcast. What
Mhm.
kind of stories do you feel your guests kind of gravitate towards?
They definitely gravitate towards the spiritual in the way of the unknown and talking about things that are fringe subjects, I guess, or outer limit subjects, things that aren't your typical, we're talking about possibilities. We're talking about what's possible when it comes to spirit. We love talking about uh, like cryptids and cryptozoology, that kind of stuff. When it comes to the podcasts, I love talking about on my podcast, talking about spirits, spirit guides, how to interact with them safely. That tends to be a topic that's um, pretty well loved. I get those questions pretty often. Hey, can you talk about spirit guides? Can you talk about how to work with them? That seems to be a pretty hot topic all the time because people are curious on how to do it and they don't want to, get in trouble, which is great. So those tend to be some of the hot topics for the show.
Now, let's talk a little about spirit guides. How would you talk to someone about getting in touch with their spirit guide? I mean, what is the process? What do you suggest they do? I mean, what is the first thing you tell them if they're interested in getting in touch with a spirit guide?
Okay. So if someone is saying, I really want to talk to my spirit guides, I really want to have this two-way communication, that's great. And anybody can. However, what I recommend before anybody starts flinging the door open and just, launching themselves into the spirit world is to really make sure on a human level, you're in a good place because you don't know what's going to be on the other side of that door when you open it, right? You want to make sure that in your world, you're feeling like pretty good, So if you've got a lot of stuff going on that's really hard to manage or distracting, or you've got a lot of trauma that you really haven't gotten a handle on, I would say wait because you just don't need, I mean, opening up this realm is amazing and beautiful when you're ready for it. If you're not ready for it, or you think, oh, I'll just shove my junk into the closet and play with this stuff instead. Spirit's not having it. They're going to open up that junk drawer and go, wait a minute. You've got all this stuff in here that's you're pretending doesn't exist. And now we want to open up this whole, basically now a can of worms. It's going to be a disaster.
It's like
So making sure you're in a good place first is key.
so it's like someone trying to play with a Ouija board trying to contact the spirits. You're opening a door to the spirit world that you're not ready for at that time.
Right. Yep. Although I wouldn't say a Ouija board is the best way to do it. Stay away from that. But yeah, it's opening up any doorway. There's ways to do it
Yeah.
and ways to be ready for it. And that would be the best way I'd say to be ready is to make sure you're in a good place.
I mean, that is such logical advice because people think they're in a great place, but the problem is they push all this trauma of their life in the back and it comes to bite you in the ass in the end.
Yep. Well said.
And if you're not ready to handle what you're about to open, I mean, if you don't know what your spirit guide looks like, or if a malevolent spirit's gonna and come at you, you better be prepared to handle it in every way possible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's interesting because when people ask me questions that they want intuitive answers, they want some intuitive guidance. And so they'll ask a question expecting it's either going to be this answer or this answer. And what I tell everybody, I'm like, here's the deal. If you're going to ask questions, that's fine, but just understand that there's more than just these two answers all the time. There's so many answers that you couldn't anticipate. So be ready for any of them. And so that goes in the same way with opening up your sensitivities to spirit. It's like it's not just this or this. There's so many other things that could come up that you don't even know exist yet. So you want to be really ready to get on that horse, because it could be really challenging in the beginning with what it stirs up.
Now, have you had anything paranormal happen to you during a live recording?
Yes. The most recent thing that happened is when we were doing our radio show, and I was in my studio, which I'm in the dining room right now because my downstairs we had water damage and now
Okay.
we have construction people downstairs right now. So I was downstairs in my studio and by myself because I keep all the humans and dogs upstairs, lock them out. And one of the listeners heard someone come through my microphone, and the producer heard it too, that he was clearing his voice. I
Oh,
didn't hear it. They heard him clearing his throat. And what's interesting about that is that there's the former owner of our house has done that since day one, which I never told anybody because I don't know, I guess I'm used to it. It's no big deal. But I didn't tell that to anybody. So to have them go, Heidi, I hear someone clearing their throat. Is there someone there? It's really clear. And I thought, oh my gosh, I know that that's real because it's what happens here anyway. So that was pretty cool that there was that. I've always hoped that when I'm on camera, someone watching will see something behind me, someone come in and, photo bomb or something. I'm always hopeful for that, but it hasn't happened yet.
so you're waiting for a shadow figure just to walk right by and someone's
Absolutely. I would love it. Or Bigfoot, I'd take anything. Just come on in, just make yourself at home here, but it hasn't happened yet.
So you are a believer. I take it you are a believer then in Bigfoot.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I say, why not? There's no proof that they don't exist.
No.
So why not? I've seen too
Bigfoot.
many things that I believe they do exist.
hmm Bigfoot, Yeti. I mean, Loch Ness Monster.
Mm-hmm. I looked for Loch Ness Monster. I would, I don't know how many things could hide in that place. That place is dark and deep and the vibe there is wild. So yeah, there could be a bunch of things hiding in that Loch Ness, and who knows? Yeah, why not believe in it?
I mean, you only live once in your life. I mean, why not believe in everything and then just weed everything out that you don't want to believe in the end?
Yeah, exactly.
So, what is the wildest reaction you've ever had with a listener or a client after they shared an experience with you?
Hmm. So my reaction or their reaction?
Your reaction to a guest sharing something with you?
I don't know. I mean, I've heard some I've heard some pretty wild things. So it takes a lot to to freak me out. I mean, to startle me. I mean, I don't know how many people say to me, they start with, "You're gonna think this is crazy," and I'm like, "Really? I don't. Try me," because so far everything sounds like it could happen. So um, it's hard to get a wild reaction out of me. Honestly, I'm pretty even keeled. I'm pretty steady. There are times where I am scared, like in a situation, but if someone's just telling me something, I'm ready for it. Bring it on.
All right. Now, for someone who's never had a paranormal experience but is curious, where should they start looking?
What I would do is start with someone who has done a lot of this work and kind of come under their umbrella. So, for instance, I teach a paranormal 101 class, and it's very safe, it's very informative, and I offer those in the spring, in the fall, in the summer. We have a little break. I mean, in the winter, we have a little break in the summer, but teaching a class so that people can get just a little taste of it without putting themselves in danger, because I will manage the entire thing. I will manage where it is. I will manage whatever energies are there. I will help keep people safe, and I will not let them go into a situation that could be harmful.
All right.
So finding a situation like that, or a class, or someone who is experienced that wants to mentor people, is a great way to start. I hesitate to say, looking stuff up on the internet,
Yeah.
and just because you never know. I've worked with people who have gotten themselves into some pretty serious trouble with videos that they've watched, even meditations and things like that. It's been really, there's some sketchy stuff out there, even if it doesn't feel like it or look like it. So I would just, look in your immediate area for someone who is experienced in this kind of work and that's willing to take in new people and show them the ropes in a really safe and grounded way.
Now, here's a question. I mean, I've seen a lot and I've heard a lot about this. A lot of times you'll have a paranormal investigator, and a lot of times a spirit will connect to them and go home with them. How do you protect yourself from this kind of energy, especially when you're dealing with heavy or intense cases?
Yeah, I have no no tolerance for hitchhikers. So one of the things that we do before any paranormal investigation is do protections on the people and the equipment and anything that's new to the location. So we do a protections for everybody, and then we do it again at the end. And I will open myself up just to make sure at the end that nobody has any hitchhikers. Now I can't keep that 100% from happening, because some people love drama and they're going to open themselves up and either intentionally or unintentionally bring something home because they want the extra drama in their life, and I guess so be it. But if you're with me, that's going to be very unlikely. It doesn't mean, now there's a difference here, because some people get home from an investigation and they go, oh my gosh, my electronics are acting up, my light flickered, and this didn't happen before the investigation or before a class or whatever. Okay, but it may not be an attachment or something that came home with you. But imagine if you're hanging out at, like, when you go to a friend's house and you have dogs, right? Let's say you have dogs or animals, your pets, and you go to someone else's house and they have pets, right? And then, so you're petting the dog or the cat and you're like, oh, so cute and whatever. And then you come back home and your animals are like, hey,
Yeah.
hey, you cheated on us. What is going on? I smell some other animals that you were hanging out with. Like, what's going on? So they're kind of riled up, right? They're sniffing, they're doing the stuff. And so it's like the same kind of thing when it's the paranormal, is you were somewhere else. messing around with something, it doesn't have to be bad stuff. It's just something you were kind of dusting things up, and you come home, and now the energy that's been nice and settled in your place that hasn't really been ruffled up ever is getting ruffled up by this energy that you kind of brought in, just like, dust on your clothes or whatever. It doesn't mean it's going to last. And it doesn't mean that it was an intelligent being. It just means that maybe you brought home something that this energy is like, whoa, where were you? What is that? And then it'll settle down pretty quickly. But I really try to make sure that we don't have hitchhikers, coming home with people, because first of all, it's not that common anyway. You really have to want one, I think, to take one home. Spirits like their places. They like their places more than they like people. They might be interested in you while you're there, but you're leaving and they're like, okay, see ya, because I want to stay here, or I'm stuck here, or whatever the reason is. But often they'd rather stay in a place than travel to an unknown location just because the human is going there.
Now, have you come up to a place before and then just gotten this energy like, no, this is very deep, intense, demonic energy. I want no part of this. I want nothing to do with this. They need something more greater than me to deal with what's going on here.
Well, I mean, I've been in a couple of locations like that, but it's because I was called
Mm,
into it to deal
mm,
with it. So I don't want to do that kind of stuff. And I mean, a lot of times people don't think it's that when they call us in, they just think something bad is happening. But if I'm called into it, I will do what I can.
mhm.
Um, it's usually, if there's a place that I don't want to go into, it's something that is just, it's a personal thing. If I'm out somewhere, I'm going into a place and I feel this ishy energy and I don't feel like dealing with it today, then I just won't go in. Um, I've only had a few occasions where it's really awful and I don't want to go in, but I have to because I was called to it and I said I would. And I also check in with my guides, like, can I handle it? I'm not going to be stupid, and just launch myself into a demonic nest just because I was called to it. I mean, that's dumb. So I'll definitely check with my guides. I'll do a lot of energy work, protection work, meditation around doing it in the first place before I go to a location. If I know it's going to be that bad, I wouldn't even go. Um, but if I'm guided to do it, and my guides are like, we can do this, we just have to be really careful, then I'll go, and I'll handle it.
And on top of that, have you ever been attacked? Have you had
Mm-hmm.
something? So you have had somebody put marks on you, and then you realize, oh shit,
Yeah. Yep. The worst when I was strangled,
oh
or
God.
they tried to strangle me. They clearly didn't succeed. But it's a really, really scary feeling to have hands around your neck and there's nothing to grab onto to get them off. So that's really scary.
Now, have you found that there are more people becoming open to the idea of spirits and energy work? Or you are still, or is it still a skeptical thing where people are thinking, nah, there's no such thing?
Yeah, I think the shift has been moving towards being open.
Mhm.
Definitely on the paranormal side, since the TV shows started coming out, over the last
Yeah.
20 years, that has definitely opened up for people to at least have a conversation around it. They may not believe it, but at least they'll talk about the TV shows or whatever. It gets your foot in the door to talk about spirit. And then, with the streamlining and or mainstreaming of certain practices that maybe back in the day were considered, you know, odd or whatever. Like, you think of yoga being so normal today, and it really wasn't 40 years ago. And so many people are doing yoga and doing, you know, working with Akashic records and talking to mediums and doing healing journeys, things like that. And that's becoming more and more mainstream, just like, again, yoga or Tai Chi over the last, 40, 50 years. So I think it's part of an evolution. Again, I think we're shifting as a species where our energy is, we're trying to level up, and it's hard and it's messy, as clearly we're seeing, but we're going to get there. And as people are trying to shift and they're feeling into this, just uncertainty and things are happening that they can't explain. And I think they're looking for other avenues to find healing, to find answers. And this is one of them.
And that's it. I'm Reed Miles. And that was Heidi Stephens. Before we leave, Heidi, how can people get a hold of you and if they have paranormal experiences?
You can always go to my website, which is myspiritexperience.com, or you can go to our paranormal site, which is minnesotaparanormal.com, and you can get a hold of us that way.
And how can they listen to your podcast?
My podcast is My Spirit Experience Podcast.com, and you can find it all through my website there, or you can find it on any podcast site.
And that's it. I'll leave everything down in the description below. I'm Reed Miles. That was Heidi Stephens, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you, Heidi.
Thanks, Reed.